Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living by the Law, the podcast discussing fictional worlds and how wondrous and ridiculous they are. My name is Matt, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jude and Guy.
Hey listeners, Editor Jude here. Unfortunately, we lost the audio files for this episode, so we had to revert to using screen-recorded audio, which I then did my best to edit up. It's not our greatest product, but at least we still got the episode.
Living by the Law is not currently sponsored. If you'd wish to sponsor us, find your closest homie in the world and take them out for dinner. Make sure to dress up and get your homie some flowers. At the end of the night, take your homie's hand, lean in real close, and whisper your sponsorship offer in their ear. We will hear you. We always do.
Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim is out on our screens in a few hours. But before you see what happens to Helm Hammerhand, let us go back to where it all began. Today, we will walk you through the founding of the Kingdom of Rohan, or, to put it another way, the Tale of the Northmen. This episode contains minor spoilers to the movies and books of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Amazing. Beautiful. The only time we don't prepare a cold open.
Talking about perfection, Guy.
The pivot already happened?
No, I was. This was your cold intro. I was expecting you to continue on your perfection tangent from last time.
That's fair. You know what? I am. Perfection is a thing to strive for, but you know what else is a thing to strive for is good enough. The boys will in fact be aware that I just sent pictures of my current recording setup for this particular episode, where I have a curtain strung up behind my desk. One side of the curtain is in a sliding door that's part of the cupboard against my wall, and the other one is held up by a broom, which is sandwiched between an ironing board, which is nice and low, and my desk, which it's beneath, and a soundproof tile because I need a little bit more space, and then a clothes peg attaches the top end of the sheet to the top of the pole, and boy howdy, I feel like it's probably going to follow me at some point. But
I think that it would complete the episode if it fell and just crushed Guy.
Video is being recorded. If it falls, it will. You will see it.
We will upload. Content is content.
Content is content, baby.
If Guy dies, we will upload this to the YouTube. It will be our final episode. But
and maybe a little fragile. I don't think a broom's going to take me out. But hey.
Speaking of men dying and people...
No way.
Let's go!
With Lord of the Rings, right?
Lord of the Rings, baby!
Men fail.
This is not even the cold open. We're icy cold still.
This is icy cold.
Yeah, we haven't even warmed up. My muscles are going to hurt on this one.
We're going for this fucking run.
Rings, baby. I love rings. Lord of the Rings. My favorite rings.
If you like this podcast,
motherfucker,
like this episode, you can find a couple of other Lord of the Rings episodes that we've done over the years. We did an episode on Numenor way back in the day when I thought Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power was going to come out a lot sooner than it did. We did an episode talking about the 5 wizards and the hobbits for some reason. I don't know why I put the hobbits in there. I think I didn't have enough time or something.
Delightful.
And then we did an episode on some pretty badass elven lords and who would win if they're all thrown into a Hunger Games. But you can also find loads more on all of our platforms and Patreon. There we go.
Let's go. My God, we're getting so good at social media.
We're 3 fucking minutes in. We've given 0 content. We can't promote our other content.
My content is the fucking MacGyvering I'm doing, all right? This I do for the subscribers.
And it's about to be content when Guy's broom falls on his head in 3, 2, 1.
No.
So last episode, even, you will remember, I'm sure, we did a great episode on the realms of men in Lord of the Rings, and in particular, the 2 major kingdoms, the Kingdom of Arnor and the Kingdom of Gondor, and their rise and fall from the beginnings of Numenor, where the people came across on their boats, the island got sunk, and then these kingdoms came about, and then they all died horribly. You remember it all, I'm sure?
I remember those dumbass fucking kings that couldn't stop being absolutely yoked on by, not Saruman, Voldemort? That sounds right.
Yep.
Come on, why don't you correct me? I know I'm not right, but I can't remember the name.
It was usually the Witch King of Angmar doing his fucking shit.
It was the Witch King of Angmar, yes.
Delightful.
I feel like, honestly, Sauron, Voldemort, Witch King of Angmar, I feel like he's kind of the midpoint between those two villains.
Hang on, is the Witch King of Angmar not Sauron? Am I stupid?
No, they're two different villains.
He's one of the Nazguls. He's one of the old kings of men.
You know the Screechy boys?
Yeah.
The guy who rides it.
Screechy boy. Those are the Dementors.
No, those are the Mandrakes.
Yeah. So we talked about a few of the different. There were predominantly in this setting. You can split the origins of the race of men into 3 different groups: those that fought with Morgoth and the Dark Gods in the big War of Gods way back in the old days, and then you had the men that fought with the gods of good, if you want to call them that, the ones that were fighting on the protective side of the war, and then you had the people that stayed neutral. Well, today's episode, we're going to talk a lot more about those people that stayed neutral.
Yeah, I know about these guys. Yeah, the knights, cowboys, and
the Swiss.
And ninjas, the 3 types of men.
Yeah. We talked about the knights. We've talked in bits and pieces about the cowboys, and now we're talking about... What did we decide? No, we cut ninjas and put something else in there.
Was it Vikings?
Vikings, that was it. Now, today we're talking about the Vikings, because that's basically what these guys are, really. So the predominant focus is going to be the lands of Romanian, which I will real quick...
Romania? The lands of Romania? Woo, baby!
I love Romania.
Gotta love Romania.
No, Rovanion.
This is a shout out to our Romanian fans.
Rovanion?
Rovanion.
Okay. Never fucking heard of it.
I'm going to send you a cheeky little image of a chunk of Middle-earth, which I'm sure we'll be able to put into a document that can be linked to this episode, or you can just search Middle-earth Rovanian. Even if you butcher the spelling, it will probably still come up.
This is one of those old fucking maps.
This little section is where a lot of today's episode is going to be being talked about. So anyone that has seen, read or watched or anything else, Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit in particular, I think there's quite a lot of people that have maybe read The Hobbit but not read Lord of the Rings, or read The Hobbit and not seen Lord of the Rings movies, whatever, anywhere in between. You will be familiar with a particular part of this chunk of map that I've sent you, and that is the Forest of Mirkwood, the Mountain of Erebor, or the Lonely Mountain, and the town of Dale. Those are all places that in the modern era of Middle-earth, that is all parts of what was once called Rovanian, and still kind of is. It's like a larger realm that has lots of different kingdoms and realms within it, if that makes sense. Like if you were of... not a great comparison, but Rovanian would be like Europe in a sense, where you've got Rovanian, and then inside of it you've got your Mirkwood, you've got your Kingdom of Dale, you've got your Forest of Beornings, all these different little factions that make up the one greater whole.
Yeah, we got the Baltic countries and we got Romania. Yeah.
Yep. It works.
Is this an original map from my man JRT?
This does look like, I think the one I've sent is an illustration from it.
It looks like it's signed by him, but I'm just confused because there's a title of a movie on here, and surely I don't think he knows about that. I don't think he knows about that great movie, The Desolation of Smaug.
It does say The Desolation of Smaug on the map, and the little cute drawing of a dragon.
It is a very cute drawing of a dragon.
It is also like 20 pixels. I'm struggling to read most of the words on the map.
I don't know why. The image that I had up on a tab was like a lot better than that. I don't.
Did you wait for it to load properly before?
Yeah, I thought.
I can see the mist. So, okay, for viewers listening, on the left side of the map we have like a compass pointing the north, and then we have a mountain line going from
better. I did have
north to south.
Open.
Excellent.
Mountains going north to south, which are called the Misty Mountains. Then we have a river called the Great River going north to south as well. Then we hit a big thing called Mirkwood, which is huge and covers most of the map. and inside there's like spider webs and shit. There's also a little bit of mountains, and I think it's the mountains of Mirkwood.
It says the mountains of Mirkwood, certainly does.
And then on the other side of the mountain, so to the east of the Mirkwood, you see there's a lake, and there's the Misty Mountain, which also says the Desolation of Smaug and a little dragon, which is probably where the Hobbit gets to.
Wait, to the west of Mirkwood. I'm just clarifying.
Yeah. And in the north, there is the Grey Mountains.
Wait, what? Erebor's to the east of...
Erebor... Wait, what? Misty
Erebor
Mountains...
is to the east.
East is the right, guy.
Yeah. I'm looking at... He said Misty Mountains, and I'm seeing Misty Mountains on the left.
No, Lonely Mountain.
My bad.
My bad. I misheard.
Yes.
There's Misty Mountains on one side, the Lonely Mountains on the other. I'm confused about the mountains and
it's
why
a Lonely
there's this way.
Mountain. There's only one.
Oh, that explains why it's lonely. This is me doing first grade Lord of the Rings class.
Yeah. This is prep class, honestly. And anyone that's read The Hobbit or watched The Hobbit, this has got some lovely areas. Bjorn's house is in Rovanian. You've got the old forest road leading through Mirkwood where the dwarves go down and have all their weird drug trip moments.
They didn't put that in the movies.
Yeah, they did.
Did they? Which one?
The Desolation of Smaug.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, that's all right. I didn't think so. You'll also see, for all of our bearded enjoyers and big hairy men enjoyers, there are a lot of dwarf holds in this map. So we've got the Misty Mountains, which of course is home to many different clans of dwarves, chief of which being Khazad-dûm. And then we've also got up in the north the Grey Mountains, where there's a lot of different dwarf colonies. Of course, the Lonely Mountain, which is Erebor, one of the big dwarven capitals, and then over to the east you start to get the Iron Hills. So this is, in many ways, kind of one of the heavier dwarf concentrations of Middle-earth.
I love how one of the rivers is called River Running. Yeah, I sure hope it is.
Jesus Christ. I mean, we do have Great River of Wilderland. We've got Forest River. We've got River Running. And
Great River, so great.
There's no label on the other one, but it's Riverdale.
Yeah, you have a river on the west of the Misty Mountains. You have Rivendell, and I love that there's written Elrond. Like, he's a place, the man, the myth, the legend. It
is Elrond. But yes, there. So a lot of different things that you can kind of see in this area. And where, especially the Hobbit books, pretty much the majority of that does happen in the realm of Rovanian. So the people that lived in these lands east of the Misty Mountains, we would now know as Mirkwood, Dale, and all these different areas. But there are, of course, many different tribes of men.
Men. I love men.
But as we established last time, men in the traditional Anglo-Saxon gender-neutral sense, as opposed to men. Of these different groupings and tribes, you have lots and lots of different mixed bloods, and it kind of becomes a little bit of a melting pot of different cultures. You've got people from the eastern deserts coming in, so way out into the lands of Rune, which we won't talk about today that much, but maybe I'll do an episode on there soon. They're a very different land. You've got the mountain folk, you've got people that are coming down from the very far north and more of like an Arctic colder background, so your classic Scandinavians, I guess, if you want.
The Vikings are back.
The Vikings are here. And then even people from the south that have migrated up north, so people that share a lot more traits of the Númenóreans but are not really in any way descended from them. All in all, it creates a whole bunch of different tribes and all different fledgling kingdoms that group together and become this sprawling area, living out of Mirkwood, I will clarify, back in these times, Mirkwood would have been called Greenwood because it was still like nice and green and not full of spider webs. But in any case, you have a big forest, you've got lovely rivers, mountains. It's a pretty good place.
I was going to say, it has a lot of spires and it looks very scary right now. I wouldn't want to live there, but if it's called Greenwood at the time, it sounds nicer.
Greenwood is when it was a lot nicer. And these men are colloquially grouped together by referred to as the Northmen. Some of the later descendants, I think I've pretty much tagged all of them, but just to jump on top of for anyone that's knows any Tolkien lore, some of the men that we know in modern movies that are descended from them. the men of Dale and Esgaroth. So these are, in the Hobbit movies, the people that live on the lake, so like Lake Town, and people that live in the big city of Dale that gets attacked by Smaug. Their descendants, and the Eotheod, who we're going to talk about a lot today, who are the ancestors of the kingdom of Rohan. And, of course, the Beornings, who are big forest-dwelling tribesmen that have people that like to turn into bears.
Delightful.
Same.
In the Second Age, so a long time before our last episode, this whole area was predominantly two Sylvan Elf kingdoms. Sylvan Elves meaning wood elves, basically, to put it in simple fantasy words. And you had Greenwood itself and Lorien, which would later become Lothlorien, for anyone that's watched Lord of the Rings. But during the War of the Last Alliance, which we talked about last time, when the elves and the men got together to go beat up Sauron, both of the kings of those separate elf kingdoms got killed. Meaning that these two elven kingdoms began to significantly deteriorate and began to give more space to the tribes of men, who, of course, would uprise big time in the Third Age, the time of men to be men. So we talked a lot about last time. You've got Gondor rising at this time. You've got Arnor rising. You've got like these 800, pretty much 800 to 900 years of peace and everyone going great and everything getting prosperous.
What's these guys' opinion on the people from Numenor coming over and starting big cities?
At this stage, pretty neutral.
They're like, that's not really mine. That's a bit south. We don't really give a shit about that shit.
They are very disconnected at this point. They're two different peoples. The peoples in the south have like raised up these Númenóreans and put them as their kings. The people in the north are just kind of separate tribes at this stage.
Yeah.
They have like people move between the two kingdoms, and you get people from north moving south or south moving north, whatever. But it's not like a political alliance or anything like that.
But what of the dwarves?
The dwarves? I'm so glad you asked. At this point, there are many, many different tribes, and some of them are certainly friendly of the dwarves, and some of them don't really have anything to do with them.
Okay. There's not any beef going on?
Not yet.
Yeah, the dwarves are like in the mountains, and they're like the mountains are dangerous. So I'd rather be on the rivers and in the valleys, in the forests. You know?
I'm not one to engage in stereotype, but dwarves have a reputation of being a little prickly. So I would not be surprised if a bunch of random fucking humans rocking up on their doorstep would piss them off. Honestly, Godspeed to them. It's their given kingdom.
What we do have, which this seems like as good a place, they need to drop the little nugget. During the Third Age, so during, I don't think it's quite happened yet. It'll be a few thousand, probably a few hundred years after where we're about up to now in the timeline we're going through here. You have the Lonely Mountain, Erebor, as we've established, which becomes a very prosperous and rich kingdom of dwarves, and you get a large group of men from these tribes that form up outside, and they create kind of they allow Erebor to trade with the rest of Middle-earth by giving it ports, by giving it access to the great rivers, and the dwarven riches flow through this town, which then becomes a big city and becomes Dale, which becomes a, of course, very, very powerful and wealthy nation of men. And they have a very, very, very powerful friendship with the dwarves that would endure for a very long time.
Maybe a bit too rich, maybe a bit too powerful.
Maybe a bit too rich. Wouldn't want to attract any dragons now, would you? So, a couple more hundred years on, Angmar and Arnor are fighting. Gondor's just kind of being Gondor. And the Easterlings that we discussed last time begin to foray into the Northmen. They see Gondor, they see this big scary kingdom, and they go, what if we just went north and started taking on all these weaker tribes? And so they did. They start burning, they start pillaging, and they just start ransacking the wilderness. All these different tribes, none of them are unified or strong enough together to stand up against these unified armies coming from the east.
Damn.
Okay.
It's a bit rough.
Yeah.
But Gondor is not one to sit idly by. So the king of Gondor at the time brings his armies north and frees the tribes of the Northmen from the Easterlings and sends them packing back into the deserts. And they become very good friends at this point.
Damn. So Gondor was there for them.
Gondor comes along at this time. After 1,100 years of relative separation, they decided that seeing them burn and be pillaged was a step too far. So they come north, and this is the start of a friendship between all these different tribes and this big mighty kingdom to the south.
What's this kingdom called again? Rovion?
Rovanian.
So Rovanian called for aid, and Gondor will answer.
Well, they didn't so much call for aid as much as a whole bunch of different tribes were like, help us! And Gondor goes, don't worry, child, I'm coming. And
What's that if not calling for aid, you know?
well, we'll get to that bit later. So then Gondor comes up. They become very, very, very good friends. Now, you may be thinking, you may not be thinking, but you may be thinking, we've gone past the year 1200 now. We're heading into the year 1300. You remember the last episode I talked about in the years 1400, that like 100-year period, Gondor suddenly had a whole bunch of infighting because of a mixed blood king.
Yes. Well, not infighting. They kind of just went, "No, we don't want this one."
No,
that was later. The one was later.
Oh, sorry.
It's the early infighting, early civil war. That's why they couldn't help Ardor when they got attacked.
Yes, apologies.
Yeah. It's all good. And so, after this, Gondor became very close with the people of the north, and populations flourished between the two realms. You might even say, too close. So much so that there was a marriage between Gondor royalty and the lords of one of the northern tribes, creating a mixed blood king. While this was
the
fine
racism
in many people's eyes, it was less of, I suppose it is still racism, but it was less of fucked. That's a great
It was less of
point.
racism, more like about where they were from and their background and like, you know, their culture, you know?
My point is more, it's less of ew Northmen. They like and respect the Northmen, but it's more the Northmen are cool, but the Númenóreans are the kings, and this person was no longer pure Númenórean. That was more the conflict. I don't know. I don't think it makes it any better.
Jude, I'm sorry, but that's definitely still racism.
What did I say?
It's a little bit of racism. It's not.
It's about a thing about called purity of blood, you know.
It's more, yeah.
Which is not good. But
anyway, fuck's sake. So this led to infighting in Gondor, which we went through last time. However, as the Gondor exiled king was pushed north, he retreated away from Gondor. Gondor fell to this usurper. The Northmen then rallied behind their king, respecting him as one of their own, but also one of Gondor. And then this massive army of Northmen went down south, and half of Gondor rallies behind him, and they push the usurpers out and reaffirm the line of kings in Gondor. This, of course, would only help to strengthen their friendship and begin to circulate a lot of wealth, construction, resources, craftsmanship, whatever you want to call it, into the north and start to share a lot of their civilization. Meanwhile, just a small little aside for everyone that's wondering about the elves, because I know everyone loves them.
I always wonder about the elves. What those sneaky motherfuckers up to.
They've never come across my mind.
In this few 100-year gap before we jump into what's happening with the men of Rovanian, in the hidden north, we have Greenwood, and in a little pocket of the north, we have the Sylvan Elves, or the Wood Elves, once again, ruled by King Thranduil, who people from the Hobbit era will know kind of well as the arsehole king that doesn't like Thorin very much.
But damn, is he beautiful.
He is the son of the king that went into the last alliance and died horribly. And this largely contributes to why he becomes such an isolationist king and why he's so hesitant to help with the dwarves and such in the future. Because last time his people went to help, they lost their king, half their people, and fell apart as a kingdom. So he just starts withdrawing into himself, bringing all of his people back into their most northern pockets and just abandoning the Greenwood. And this is what starts to lead to the corruption seeping into the Greenwood, as the elves are not there to maintain it.
This is Legolas's daddy, right?
This is Legolas's daddy.
Where do you go then?
I can't always blame the elves, but I always want to blame the elves.
Yep. They don't know. They're still in the Greenwood, but if you're looking at the map, the Greenwood's massive. They go from occupying most of the woods to a little pocket that you can see in tiny writing that says Elven King's Halls.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, it is literally nothing.
Yeah.
So back in its glory days, they would have occupied most of it and had like roving groups of people around most of the woods. They kind of go way up north and abandon most of it, especially the mountains of Mirkwood, which used to be like where their capital city stood, and they completely pull out of those mountains and retreat north.
Yeah, this is the guy that like pulled his army up onto the hill and then looked across, made a direct eye contact with Thorin, and then turned his army around.
He went down good.
Honestly, the biggest dick move. You didn't have to bring the army. You could just send a messenger. You didn't have to bring it to and then turn around. Like,
Yeah,
But it's not about sending a messenger, it's about sending a message, Matt.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Looking it directly in the eyes and turning the army back.
and just flip them off. Meanwhile, back across to the west, which is a little bit south of this particular map image because it's out of Ravanian. That's okay.
West is south.
Southwest, we have the realm of Lorinand, which would eventually become Lothlorien, a place that you go to in the Fellowship of the Ring, where Galadriel, the spooky blonde witch lady, sits. And at this point, you still have a Wood Elf king ruling over this part. And they completely disappear from these northern areas and just retreat into their woods as well. But also, a fun little throwaway that I learned that you'll all just love to know. That big river running down the middle, the Great River of the Worldland, or otherwise known as the River Anduin, the valleys along that river are where we find a little cute group of creatures known as Stoors, otherwise known as the Other Hobbits.
What the
There's
fuck
more
are
than one
you talking
fucking
about?
hobbits?
Yeah. So we have the Hobbits of the Shire, and then we have the Stoors, who are... Let's just put it into D&D terms. You've got Lightfoot Hobbits, and you've got the other ones. Lightfoot Hobbits and... what are they called? I forget what they're called in D&D.
That's a good question. I don't know either because I don't play halflings.
Fuck, we're shit at D&D, guys. We've got a race name. But yeah.
Wait, there's other fucking hobbits we didn't know about that were much closer to Mordor that Gandalf could have been to go like, I need 2 hobbits.
Yeah, but they're not the
fucking
destined.
hobbits
They're
that
not the
are way
destined
closer.
adventurers.
The important thing is was. They just
Lightfoot and Stout for anyone listening.
Lightfoot and Stout.
Oh no, dude! Oh, don't do it.
They eventually migrate around and no longer in this area.
That's
This
actually
time-
really good as well.
they are.
Sorry, the stout halflings in the description it has as a stout halfling, you're hardier than average and have some resistance to poison. Some say that stouts have dwarven blood.
Yep. I wonder where they got it from.
As
But yes, that is the Stoors. Anyway, a couple hundred years pass, and we get to our good old friend, the Great Plague.
yay! Wait, what?
Yeah.
We're back. We're back in the Great
Why
Plague.
are we friends with the Great Plague?
We talked about it last time. It's a friend of the podcast.
Ow!
right?
No.
Anything that's appeared on the podcast is a friend of the podcast.
Exactly. So in the year 1636 of the Third Age, the Great Plague devastates Rovanian, where it does damage to Gondor and not too much to Arnor due to how far west it is. Rovanian is far enough east to cop it badly, and both densely populated enough and not developed enough that this plague just decimates the population. It is awful. And this leaves them even more weakened than Gondor. And where I said last episode said Gondor was left so weak that the people of the East could probably have beat them, the Northmen were even worse. So what do you think those people did? They attacked the Northmen.
Yeah.
And this is when another friend of the podcast, the Wayne Riders, those guys that are riding Wayne,
Wayne Gretzky, he's back.
the Wayne Riders in their chariots come over in 1856 after the plague's finished up and they've recovered, not the Northmen, and they completely overrun Ravanian and just begin enslaving the varied tribes.
This fucking
good.
area cannot catch a break.
It really cannot. It only gets worse.
So how are those bear
After-
people going? You know?
We'll do an
No,
episode
they're
on the
bears. They can turn to bears. How are they not doing well?
Bear can still
do
get
an
plague.
episode- We'll do an episode on the Beornings at some point.
Can the bear get a plague?
Yeah. I imagine so.
I mean, okay,
Animals get illness.
it depends what the illness is like. Human to animal illnesses are very different. That's why usually big plagues come from animals, because it affects us greatly because we're not immune to that kind of disease.
There have been several cases of plague in wildlife in the state. This is from Oregon. One case involved a mule deer near the Dales, but generally most ungulates and carnivores, canids, bears, raccoons, are fairly resistant.
There you go. So, for 43 years, the majority of the people of Ravanian were enslaved or on the run. But in 1899, there was a revolt coordinated with an attack by Gondor, and the Wain Riders, coordinated by Gondor on the Wain Riders from the west, and this was the first big victory against them. Not the final one, because there were a couple we talked about last time, but the one where Gondor went north and was able to beat them back into the east.
Yeah, get out of here.
When they came up here, they were once again free. Ravanian was once again free, but left extremely weakened. This means that a lot of the tribes begin to disperse, and the once thriving areas of many different cultures begins to break up to some extent.
Are these still very separated groups, right? There's not like a country yet. There's not a country.
There's many different small nations, many different tribes, all of this sort of thing, but there's not one unified kingdom at this point. Part of the reason why they continually run into these issues where one big unified force from the east can come over and just...
I guess it might be difficult with a big fucking forest in the middle, but it's fair.
Yep. But the result of this is many of the men of Ravanian left for Gondor, where they were welcomed as distant relatives, or a small pocket of them went up to the west and settled along the river. The Great River of the Woodland, or the Great River Anduin, depending what you want to call it, and the valleys that run along this river. And these men would become known as the Eotheod.
Eotheod?
Eotheod, yes.
What are they getting up to? What are they cooking?
Are we supposed to know this word?
We're about to get to that.
Yay!
So you don't know it yet.
Can I ask a question before?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, just about the Wain Riders. Because they're coming from the east. Mm-hmm. The first thing I'm seeing they're hitting is like the Lonely Mountain and Dale and stuff like that. Was Dale not as strong as this point, or did they just avoid Dale because it was a bit of a stronghold?
It's more the areas that get hit worse are kind of south of the old forest road.
I see. So they hit like the weaker areas instead of like hitting a city or Dale.
Yeah, let me just get a handy prop that I totally prepared earlier.
Of course, King.
Of course. Where's the one that I normally like to look at?
The one that I like to look at. I imagine Jude sits there and just inspects Lord of the Rings.
I also need. He looks at it.
He's just looking at it.
I need to know which river did the dwarves barrel down in their barrels in the Hobbit movie.
Oh, I can tell you that very soon.
Is that the river? Is that the Forest River?
No, it's the river running.
It would have been the eastern end of the river, the Forest River.
Damn it!
Yeah. Well, the river runs too south. They're going to Dale.
Oh no, I was just hedging my bets in case Jude said I was right.
That'll do it.
But geographically, Guy, would have made no sense.
Hey man,
get your head in the game.
I barely remember the scene, let alone the fucking geography of where they were at. Didn't they? They got dropped out of the mountains.
How long do you have to be to watch Lord of the Rings, Guy? Do we have to strap you down?
You won't get me to do it. It will not happen.
Can we do it? I want to do this.
I'm just going to jump in real quick here. So this other image, which I'll put in, I do like this. I wonder how long.
Ooh, that's a wobbly image.
Anyway, the interesting thing about, the thing that you can kind of learn from this, so you can see the big title of Ravanian.
Yes.
Which is the zoomed out version of what we were just looking at. And then you can look way to the south is Gondor.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, South Gondor. I've got South Gondor.
Yep. It's just Gondor. I'm saying.
Gondor. Oh no, okay, it's just written in there. Sorry, it's one of those things where the maps sometimes integrate the names in amongst the mountains and stuff.
That one, and then the place that the Wain Riders are coming from is the Sea of Rune.
Oh, so they just went directly west
kind of
and hit that
west.
area.
It's a shit sea. It's, like it's a big lake.
What?
It is. Yeah.
Well,
That
it's
is
like,
also
it's like the
that
Dead
is like-
Sea Lake.
That is all desert, basically. Yeah.
Disgusting. So there's this. Okay, cool. So why they go that way? That's stupid.
Because reasons that we'll get to.
Sure.
Trust me, we actually will.
Yeah, I know. My pants are called the Brown Lands.
Fuck me.
This brings us to the midpoint of the Third Age, where Ravanian is quite a populated area. In the north lays the dwarven kingdoms of Erebor at this stage, and the dwarf halls in the Great Mountains. The kingdoms of Dale near the Great and near the Great River of Anduin, we have this newly forged realm of the Aetheod. And in the southeast of Greenwood the Great, we have the Woodmen. Everything's stable.
alright.
And then it's not.
No, motherfucker.
So something did happen during the Third Age, which we later find out about. An area that you'll see called the Dol Guldur on the big map, or anyone from...
That's the big mountain. This big mountain at the top, right?
Nope, Dol Guldur is in the middle of the forest. It's just...
That's
if you
good to
look at the
bad.
map-
Sorry.
Great. That's okay. There's a lot of random names. None of them make any sense, I swear. And then Dol Guldur is a fortress in the middle of the big forest, Mirkwood / Greenwood, and this particular mountain is an old elven fortress that was abandoned by the Wood Elves, and a spirit has taken up residence here.
Is this the Necromancer?
And that spirit is Sauron, the Necromancer.
Oh,
Whoa!
sick.
And
He's a
that
little
is-
far. He's got lost. He's a little far away from Mordor.
Well, this is this Dol Guldur provides a perfect midpoint between Mordor and Angmar at this time.
That makes sense.
He's going to visit his besties.
And of course, that quite possibly, while it's in no way confirmed, it's definitely one of a few positive theories that is why the Wayne Riders attack in such this direction, because that leads them very much in the direction of Dol Guldur. And the Wayne Riders are kind of being egged on and manipulated by Sauron and his servants.
So is every single sin in this world a little egged on by Sauron?
All the evil is, yeah.
It's like if you fart in an elevator in Middle Earth, you're like this. It's like, sorry, that was Sauron. He told me to.
I was
Like,
Sauron,
you can't
guys,
help
wasn't
it.
me.
I was commanded.
Yeah.
The spirits told me to.
It's when you failed it, when you don't like hold a door open for someone on the way out. You're like, damn, I got to stop listening to the whispers of Sauron.
Yeah, fuck me. So that'll bring us to the Aetheod. So they escaped the Wayne Riders after Gondor freed them, and they led their revolt. They fought their way out, and they escaped further west, abandoning where they used to live, and settle along the banks of the Anduin. However, they would not find too much peace here, unfortunately. As despite the Wayne Riders being defeated in 1944, this new shadow had arisen in Dol Guldur, that while no one knew what it truly was, everyone that dwelt anywhere near it could feel its presence. And so the Aetheod, led by a man named Frumgar, leads them to migrate north to these very distant northern plains in a confined area between rivers, at the very top source of the Anduin. So if you're looking at a map, way up near the Ered Mithrin, near Mount Gundabad and this little forked river area.
Hey, goodbye.
Yep. Way up there. Which is an interesting choice to go with how north it is, but hey, it's far away from where the enemies are, right?
Sorry, also the scale on this map is insane. I'm just looking, like 50 miles that's everything on this map is way bigger than it seems at first blush.
Yep.
Wild.
It is a long way. Don't worry.
It's a lot of walking in Lord of the Rings.
I don't know, it just feels like it's a really long way.
It does, right?
Feels
Don't
like
worry,
you can make a movie about going that far. Damn.
Yeah, walking from one side to the other takes 3 movies.
I hear you don't simply do it, though.
One must.
Anyway, they eventually came up into this area, this spot very near the Grey Mountains, near the top of the Misty Mountains, and they arrived there after the fall of Angmar, eventually. So if you remember last time, we talked about the final fall of Arnor, and then the elves and the last king of Gondor, Earnor, leads this combined army to attack Angmar, and they drive them off and defeat Angmar, and they get rid of the Witch King, and he flees. Well, they get up there, and they find fleeing into this direction the remaining orcs of Angmar. So the Aetheod go, let's fucking get them, boys, and they defeat the rest of the orcs of Angmar.
Oh, great.
That's the end of them. Yeah.
That's it? They're done?
They're done. Angmar's gone.
And that's all she wrote. Jesus.
That is all she wrote.
Wait, okay. Is this after that big thing with the Northmen and the wife and the problems with Gondor?
This is way after.
Okay, I kind of missed that a little bit.
That's okay. That's what I'm saying. So this is, they settled. That was the midpoint. And then they eventually get driven north with Fear of Dol Guldur. And then they arrive there after all of the other things have happened.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So then we get to...
These guys still don't have like a together, like a government or anything like that. There's still just a couple of tribes chilling.
At this stage, yeah. You've got Dale, you've got Esgroth. Like I said, that's why
Dude,
I said...
it's the 1900s. It's time to start getting stuff together.
It's 1900s if we had a 300-year-long Black Death in the middle of it. That's why I said... So the midpoint that I established before, the midpoint of the Third Age, that's when you've got Ravanium being pretty scattered post all of these invasions and Great Plagues. You've got the Kingdom of Dale well and truly happening. You've got the river people happening, the woodland people, and then these guys eventually make their way up here. The next thing we're going to get to, you may be thinking, that's smooth sailing. They've made their way north, they found a home, they're near the dwarves of the Grey Mountains, and it's great. But there's something else that likes mountains and likes the north and likes dwarves. Can anyone guess what that might be?
Sauron?
Other
Or what's the demon? Nasty bitch?
No. Okay.
Nasty bitch.
I am going to send a quote to the chat.
God love you, boys, but like sometimes there are topics that are just so indecipherable to me, and Lord of the Rings just happens to be one of them. I don't know what about my brain processing cannot understand Lord of the Rings. It's another language to me.
It's just, dude, guy. It's just the fact that you refuse to watch any of them.
I have gone on too long for this bit. At this point, it just needs to stay a thing.
To be fair, even I, sometimes when I know the names of places, I know the names of people, get lost in the fact that it just sounds like a history book sometimes. It's just like, that name did that thing, and that name did that thing, and then it was, they lived life, and then they died. It was like, okay, bye-bye.
Sounds pretty simple.
Meanwhile, there's me like, oh, what happened next? I'm going to send a quote to the chat. Matt, I want you to read this. I want you to give me a creepy sort of voice. Do you get what I mean?
Who the fuck is this? I'm trying to think of who they could be. Oh, don't be the Easterlings. He's like dwarves. I don't know. I can't see it. Is it in?
It's in the chat.
Oh, it's in the... Oh, we usually send things to the messenger chat, dude, not
we
the...
We do, don't we? Sorry, Zoom was just
chat. What is this?
So.
Okay, I'll read it. He crawled like a slow creeping death, too horrible to flee from men with fear and his icy breath.
Froze men.
Froze men with fear and his icy breath, and then crushed them, ground them under his long white belly. It's a fucking dragon!
It's a dragon! These men cannot catch a break because they're about to tangle with Scartha the Worm.
Dude, didn't these guys just like do the one thing that's defeat Angmar, which like Gondor couldn't fucking do?
They didn't defeat Angmar, they just defeated some fleeing orcs from Angmar.
Oh, okay. I thought they got rid of it. I thought we were like, no more Angmar. No. Bye-bye.
Yes, but that's because it was just some like remaining orcs that had fled the
They cleaned up.
Exactly. So, Scartha, known as the Worm, was, get ready for this because it's a delightful little mental image, a blind and silent grey long worm of a dragon with a white belly that was known as the Great Dragon of the Grey Mountains. Yep, slithery little grey fucker. Um,
Sounds like an old man.
yeah.
Or dragon.
So little is told of Scartha's life, except that he had a vast den in the Grey Mountains that stank like a dark tomb and contained a hoard of treasure which included sharp, bright stones and a beautiful silver horn made by the dwarves. This dragon raided from the dwarves of the Grey Mountains like you wouldn't believe. He was a fucking scourge on them. He also collected bones as toys, particularly the hands of dwarves and the skulls of men, which he piled in his den as a bed, and he licked them clean.
He's a rat. I'm looking at images. This guy looks feral.
This is just a rat in dragon clothing.
Yep.
Also, yeah, we get he's evil. We get it. Okay. Also, maybe that's just what dragons do. Okay. How dare you judge the dragon?
Smaug wasn't like that. Smaug was beautiful and like magnificent and stuff. This guy's just a gross rat.
Dude, Smaug burned an entire town and killed an entire city.
But he did it gracefully. He did it with pose. He did it with the voice of Benedict Cumberbatch, and God is my witness.
This is a big thing. I don't think there's much. I'll be honest. I don't think there's much difference between killing an entire city and sleeping on their bones, and killing an entire city and sleeping on their gold. Say I'm crazy. Maybe it's just the disrespect at the end of it, but I think both are pretty bad.
You've got a creature that's sitting there making a bed out of bones, licking every last scrap off, and then you've got one that's sitting in gold like, look how pretty I am.
Yeah, but you're not taking the point out. They both killed a lot of people.
Oh, I'm not denying that. I'm just saying one of them's way more magnificent, my dude.
Yo, Scartha's bigger than Smaug.
He is a bit of a... Okay, that's fair. Smaug is beautiful. This is a rat. And I guess if we're just judging by covers, if we're just being a bit rude here and judging by a cover, I guess he's a bit more... I feel sorry for him. I think he's never been shown love.
I know you don't listen to me, but I said this guy's a rat. Meanwhile, Smaug's magnificent. That was all I ever said.
I think that's Smaug propaganda. And I think Scartha's never had her light today. Wait, he or him? Or they, them?
Scartha's he. This
never had
dragon,
his light today.
Which, as I said, had long been a scourge with the dwarves of the Grey Mountains, decided these tasty little men that had just settled would be great to make another snack. And so he attacked the Aetheod. And they were not pleased.
Dare I say, unsurprising.
That brings us to the next chapter. This is still just about before the time of... Pretty much just about before the time of Gondor collapsing, or the Kings of Gondor ending. Just for a loose timeline. So after Angmar's gone, after Arnor's gone, but Gondor's kings are just about still there. That dude hasn't been called a little bitch for enough years yet. He hasn't been baited yet. And while we do not know the truth of what happens here, one of the most popular theories, and the one that I like, so it's the one I'm going to go with, is that Scartha attacked the early Aetheod in their early years when they had only recently gotten to the north. Because we know that when Scartha meets them, their king Frumgar, the one that led them up here in the first place, is still ruling.
So they do have kings, at least. They do have kings.
They have kings, but like they're kings of individual tribes and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're not like huge ruling kings of massive kingdoms. Yeah. In the attack, Frumgar was badly wounded or slain. It is not clear which. This led to his eldest son, Flam, swearing vengeance on the Drake, that had eluded these dwarves for centuries. We do not have details on how this tribal chat of a man attacked and fought the dragon, but he did. And in the year 2000 of the Third Age, this is about 40 years before the death of the last king of Gondor, he just goes up and kills Scartha.
This is the guy that they needed when Sauron was baiting them.
They should have
taken this guy. This is a man I trust. Make him king.
Yep,
he is. He's the son of the king.
They make him king.
They did.
Make him king now.
After he killed the beast, he claimed the dragon's entire treasure hoard, which the dwarves believed rightfully belonged to them. Which, of course, it probably did.
It was their shit. That is a bit. I think you can take like a tax on it, but like most of that's their
Both
shit.
of you are forgetting
Knowing this,
the absolute key rule, which is finders, keepers, losers, weepers. Bitch.
Also, the key rule is that dwarves don't want you fucking with their gold. That's one thing you don't do.
And then, so he makes a very smart decision at this point, Fram, and that is, of course, dwarves are grudge-bearing creatures, very hard to forgive, very stubborn, very prickly, probably likely to punch you in the face if you insult them. So, of course, he makes the only sensible decision, and when they ask for their gold and treasure back, he sends them a very rare gift instead. He sends them a necklace made from the teeth of the dragon itself with a written message.
Fuck off.
Guy, I'm going to get you to read this message in your best harsh Chad voice that's just beaten up a dragon you've got for me.
Oh, I'm beating up a dragon. Jewels such as these you will not find in your treasuries, for they are hard to come by.
Oh, that is Chad. That is pretty Chad.
That is what he sends to the dwarf kings of the Grey Mountain.
These teeth are more valuable than your fucking gems, because I pulled these out of a dragon. You just pulled these out of the ground, idiot.
Yep.
Did you kill a dragon? I didn't think so, bitch boy.
For some reason, the dwarves found this insulting.
What? That's crazy.
I think it could be in a weird way, like a really cool gift, but also like
it would be a gift you give along with giving back like half the horde.
Yep.
They like shiny things. They want shiny things, dwarves.
Yep. But instead, he gives them that back and keeps the money. And the treasure in general, rather, because it's not just gold. However, so the dwarf sounds very insulting. The outcome of Fram's fate is uncertain, though it is heavily believed that he was eventually slain out of revenge by the dwarves for the insult.
He could take a dragon, but not dwarves.
He couldn't take 1,000 dwarves. I don't know.
I like how the dwarves were mad enough to kill this guy who killed a dragon. But they weren't mad enough for hundreds of years to kill the dragon itself.
Yep. Mad enough to kill him for killing the dragon, but not mad enough to take back the treasure or kill his people, which is interesting because we know, as we'll get to at the very end of this episode, we know that this treasure is still in the hands of the descendants of these people. So,
Honestly, they were just bumhurt about the insult at that point. They're like, fuck the gold, you piece of shit, come here.
And so it is likely that much of the ongoing success and the rise of the Aetheid is due to this treasure taken from the dragon and the fact that they pretty much have complete monopoly on all the fields up in this area, that their population is just allowed to grow massively, and they discover that there is another creature that loves living up in this area, and that these fields are teeming with horses that are otherwise wild.
Gamer.
So they start to befriend them, and they start to become very, very powerful and well-skilled and well-trained horsemen. They start to breed horses, they start to breed themselves, and they become arguably the most flourishing and most significant, if you exclude Dale, who are basically the buddy bitch boys of the dwarves of Erebor. These guys basically become the strongest and most prominent tribe of all of Ravanian at this stage. And the descendants of Fram and Flumgar continue to lead them. That brings us to wrap out this episode, we get to Earl. Well, I say wrap out this episode, there's a bit of it, but it's the last thing in timeline-wise. We get to the time of Earl the Young. This is about 400 years later.
Yes. Okay, reset. What's changed? Quick question. Is Mirkwood fucked yet? Like, at what point does that happen? Because the elves withdrew from it, like, ages ago.
I'm so glad you asked. At this point, to set the scene, Gondor has fallen, the Line of Kings is gone. Gondor hasn't fallen, but the Line of Kings is gone, and the reign of Gondor has been passed over to lesser men, i.e. the rule of Stuarts. So
yeah, well, Gondor has no king, and Gondor needs no king, Jude.
Exactly. Basically, a group of men who are not descendants of the king. They are descendants of the steward, who there was always a steward with the king. The king's ended, so the steward's family has continued on, and their pledge has basically been, we will look after the realm of Gondor until the king returns.
They're just keeping the seat warm. There's nothing going on.
Yep, literally. Well, most of them are quite genuine. It's just later on some of them start to get a bit less genuine.
I get that, but like, okay, weird fucking relation. There's this thing where there's like a multi-millionaire who died and he willed all of his money to his dog. And since then, there has been a succession of people taking care of the dog and being like, the dog wants another stripper. And it's like, I understand that hypothetically you are acting in favor of the dog. I do not believe that is true, though.
But Guy, you forget that Gondor has no king and Gondor needs no king.
You're so right.
Gondor is a free state. And at this point, the elves have well and truly retreated, and Greenwood is not quite Mirkwood yet, but it's starting to become less hospitable of a land.
It's more of an Urkwood, you know? It's like wood, you know?
It's not really referred to Mirkwood until the time of the Hobbit movies, which we're still a little way away from yet. But if you want a bit of a trajectory, it used to be beautiful, luscious Greenwood. It becomes icky, filled with spiders Mirkwood. At this point, it's gone from being friendly and hospitable to dark and dingy, and you might find a spider if you're unlucky. I guess if you want a bit of a trajectory.
It's the forest outside Hogwarts.
Yeah, it's become the old woods or whatever the fuck they call it. Forbidden Forest.
It's the Meh Woods, you know?
Yeah. Arnor, completely gone. All semblance of that's gone. The remaining kings have become the Dunedain Rangers that we talked about last time. The last
one of those Rangers
son, the son that decided not to become king because he had no kingdom. The Shire is well and truly jiving and going at this point, because no more Arnor means all those fields that used to be Arnor are Hobbit lands now, baby. So the Hobbits really are doing fun. That just is a little bit of a scope on the world. Mordor is still a pretty much abandoned land as far as people are aware, but there's beginning to be some interesting things happening there. The Witch King's gone into Mordor. They've lost that castle that the Gondor King got lured to and killed. And yeah. So Earl was born in the year 2485 of the Third Age, and his father, Leod, was the king of the Eothred at this time. A few years later, when Earl was 16 years old, so I guess 16 years later, Leod was killed by a wild horse that he tried to tame.
In the year of our Lord, 2496, he was killed by a. Did you say a horse?
Yeah.
So
dare I say L?
There was the
Shit King
was killed by a horse. He decided to try and tame. There was a rare breed of horse that they would find that was particularly bigger, stronger, and more cunning than other horses. And after many years of not being able to tame these horses, he wanted to try to, and it killed him.
Godspeed. Like, his friends trying to come back and explain, like, he got killed by a horse. It was a strong horse, though. It was a real good horse. Listen, this horse could put up a fight. It's not a normal horse.
They're trying to make it sound not so bad to everyone else. Like, it was, but the horse, you should have seen it.
You should have seen this fucking horse.
Smart. Such a smart horse.
You guys are going to love the next bit. For this act, the people of the Eothred called this horse Mansbane.
Dan, they must have told stories about this horse.
Mansbane just lived in the plains, and they were like, "Don't go near that thing; it killed the king."
Mansbane is 600 foot tall. Mansbane has the intelligence of the wisest of men. Mansbane has the fighting skills of a monk. Don't go near him.
And however, Earl, the son of the king that was killed, Chad that he was, went, Mansbane, nah, fuck that. And he decided to hunt this horse.
If the horse kills him as well.
I'm so ready for him to die. I'm so ready to get fucking killed on the horse.
Please let the horse kill him.
Please let Mansbane kill him, please.
You would be wrong.
No.
So, after hunting the horse, everyone expects him to go and kill the horse, but he thinks that would be too easy. So he decides that he wants to go and require that the horse serve him and surrender his freedom as a weirgild, another Anglo-Saxon word that basically means man price or the price of life, so like a blood price, basically.
Is he talking to this horse? Is he discussing in terms of surrender?
He commands this horse to serve him because it killed his father.
And initial here.
Does the horse...
And date here. And you're serving me for all eternity.
Can a horse sign a binding contract? Does it have?
Is it over 18?
Is the horse? That's good question, guy. Can it hold a quill? Can it sign?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. So
Don't fucking.
the horse somehow submits to Earl, and Earl renames him Featherhoof. Featherhoof became Earl's steed. I guess Mansbane wasn't a cool enough name. So we renamed
Mansbane was better, honestly.
And this steed would become the father of the Miras, or the king's horses, who are the steeds that would go on to be ridden by all of Earl's descendants.
All the king's horses?
And all the king's men?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
However,
Contains
anyone that pays attention to Lord of the Rings memes or just Lord of the Rings in general may remember that the Miras is a name that you will hear in the movies when Shadowfax rides out to meet Gandalf, and Legolas goes, "That is one of the Miras," referring to Shadowfax. Shadowfax is a descendant of this Mansbane horse, so the horse that Gandalf rides.
It is a big fucking horse, to be fair.
It is a big fucking horse.
Not as big as I thought.
The thing that I was going to say you'll find funny about asking if it could sign and read and stuff, there is of course the heavily beamed online where Gandalf goes, "Shadowfax, show us the meaning of haste." And then there's a bunch of edits where it's the horse's hoof pointing in a dictionary.
Right there.
His face.
And the interesting thing about this horse, after it had been tamed by Earl, it would permit no other man to ride him. And this is a thing that all of the descendants of this horse and all of the other Miras would have. Once they had bonded to a rider, that was their rider.
Damn.
We see this continuing through all the way to Brelok. Brelok, I believe his name is Brelok. Yeah, Brelok. Sorry, Brelok.
We don't fucking know, Jude. It's either you or no one.
That's okay. I believe it's Brelok. Comment on Spotify and tell me if I got it wrong. But the horse that was ridden by King Theoden's son, King Theodred, in the Two Towers, there is a horse that Aragorn goes into Rohan in the middle of the movies, and there's this horse going a bit crazy, and then he finds out that it was the king's son's horse, and the king's son is dead. Therefore, the horse is freaking out and won't let anyone else ride it. Aragorn then approaches and speaks some fancy elvish words, and he calms down the horse, and the horse then lets Aragorn ride him.
Okay, so the
These
horse speaks
fucking
Elvish.
horses can speak fucking Elvish?
They understand
No,
Elvish.
they don't speak Elvish. They understand Elvish. We had this argument last D&D session.
Which,
Yeah, there didn't seem speaking and understanding a language.
which, maybe, that is how Earl managed to tame it. Maybe he was able to learn some Elvish. I don't know. Whatever the case...
I think he signed a fucking contract and he's got these horses on a legally
so many
binding.
fucking questions about why these horses care about Elvish. It's like when you get a foster dog and it's all of the commands it's in Spanish, and it's like, what the fuck? Where does dog come
to
from?
know your history.
What the fuck is happening? But that's one thing. The interesting thing here, and thus his name, Earl the Young. Earl succeeds his father after he rides back in on this horse that killed his father. Yep, don't question. And
Excellent.
he becomes a king before the age of 20.
He conquered Mansbane. That's pretty sick.
He did. It's kind of sick, kind of terrifying.
Wait, did his dad died at 16?
Yep.
Wait.
No, it's fine.
what?
It's fine. It's medieval royalty. It's not that surprising.
No.
How old is this horse, though? That's my question. Maybe the horse was so old it was like, I
Wait,
just
sorry.
give up at this point.
Killed his father?
Killed his father when Earl was 16. So his father would-
okay, that makes way more sense. Okay, I thought when the father was 16, I'm how old is this fucking horse? Like,
No. I believe the Miras do live a bit longer than normal horses, but not that long.
Fucking course they do. Who fucked a horse? What elf fucked a horse a long time ago to make this fucking race? I need to know what elf or Numenorian fucked these horses to make them.
I need to know what Tolkien's got for like long age. It seems to he's just like, this thing's mystical. It'll live forever.
Exactly.
This thing's beautiful. It'll live forever.
He's a
This
bit of a
thing's strong.
nostalgic
It'll
man.
live forever.
He's a nostalgic man. He hates things dying.
Oh, I wonder if there's any sort of historians who would be interested in studying some reasons about that. I don't know.
So anyway,
Bruce trauma.
when he gets back, he leads the Aetherd, and they become even more numerous of people with all these horses, and they begun to make the horses basically their personality trait. But, of course, they would need more room to grow and roam, because they're starting to run out of space in these little northern plains. There's only so much fertile land up in the north with the mountains and the snow.
Yeah, and the forest is getting murkier by the minute.
It really is. Then the storm comes. On the 25th of March, the year 2510 of the Third Age, when Earl was 25 years old, so but a few years after, this will work down, an errand rider named Borondir. Yes, Borondir.
No, I'm laughing.
Confused with Boromir.
God love you, but like after it all went down, after he tamed a horse, it's impressive. It's not that impressive.
It wasn't just this horse guy; it was Mansbane.
You should have heard the stories of this horse. This horse
killed one guy, and they're
100
like, "This is the most dangerous horse alive."
This horse killed 1,000 men before it, guy.
did.
The rage of 1,000 men.
This man named Borondir arrived with an urgent message from Cirion, the 12th steward of Gondor. Gondor was under threat. A group of men from Rhûn called the Balchoth had come to attack them. They had somehow gotten north of Gondor and were circling around to attack the exposed western parts of Gondor. It would be disastrous were they to be...
Gondor calls for aid!
Cirion had sought out Earl's help in defeating them. 6 other riders had been sent, but all the rest of them had been killed by the Balchoth in their run, and only Borondir had managed to make it to them. Earl assembled his council of elders, and they prepared to ride south. On April 6th, Earl set forth with a group of Rohirrim, or a mounted army, of 7,000 fully armed riders and several hundred mounted archers.
Damn.
This leaves only a few hundred riders behind, and basically just children and a couple of old people. They basically get their whole civilization on horseback.
Pack it up. We're going.
That's putting a lot of eggs in one basket.
Yep. And the Rohirrim rode southward through the Vales of Anduin, a journey of over 500 miles.
500 miles?
500 miles.
500 miles.
I love poisoning our vocabulary piece by piece.
So if you see basically the massive river Anduin that goes way up in the north, all the way down through into Gondor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's basically from the very tippity tip down there, right the way down to... Do you see a point on here that says the field of Celebrant, if you keep going down south past Lorien?
Past Lorien?
No.
Start in the north.
Oh, yeah, no, I do. It's directly east from the Sea of Rhûn.
Oh.
West from the Sea of Rhûn.
Sorry, yeah, directly west.
I see Lorien. Yes.
Yep, and then just beneath that,
exactly under it.
Celebrant.
Celebrant.
Right next to it.
Are you guys looking at the big map?
It's like next to the end of Lorien.
Field of Celebrant. Got it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It's tucked in there.
That area. So the men of the east are attempting to get into this area that is not yet named. By modern day, we would know as Rohan, but at this point, it is an unnamed area. It is just a fiefdom of Gondor that is very heavily undefended, and they're trying to go across the river Anduin, take a weakly defended fortress, and take this whole northern area of Gondor away. So the Rovanian cavalry are riding south. As they pass Dol Guldur in Greenwood, as we now know where Sauron is dwelling, a darkness emanates from the fortress, and Earl attempts to turn westward to avoid it. But then a white mist came out of the woods of Lothlorien that stood across the river from Dol Guldur, and the riders were hidden and protected and continued in safety on their way. And under the protection of this mysterious mist, they made their journey at an unwearyingly rate, at an wearingly extraordinary speed. Would they make it in time for the oncoming battle?
They better.
I'll be honest, I appreciate you keeping the darkness off. Please tell me before you put your white mist over me. I don't...
Whose white mist is this? Whose white mist is this? Who's doing
Probably
this?
the elves.
This would be the Lady Galadriel of Lothlorien. Yes. So that brings us to the Celebrant
Glados.
Fields.
GLaDOS.
The brief history of this. Cirion has learned from his spies that this group, known as the Balchoth, were gathering a large army to attack the province of Calanadron. which is the west side of the Anduin River. So that little pocket I was pointing out to you before, near the fields of Celebrant, funnily enough. And they knew that the defense there was much too weak to repel an attack. Cirion prepares to lead a desperate army north to attempt to save this area and stop it turning into a crisis situation for the north of Gondor. And he sends out these riders desperately seeking aid of the tribes of the north. After worrying that too long had gone since he sent out his cry for help, he marched alone with his forces to meet them.
No!
The Balchoff, however, had tricks ready for Gondor's armies and were prepared to take this victory. In secret, up the river, in the hidden valleys, they had built huge boats and used them to cross the river much swifter than Cirion had anticipated. Crossing the river with their superior numbers, they swiftly overcame the fortress on the west bank, meaning that Cirion was no longer marching to reinforce a castle, but marching straight into an enemy force. Soon he came along the road with his reinforcing army, but the Balchoff cut them off and drove them over the Limelight crossing. So drove them to the wrong side of the river, further away from Gondor, completely cutting them off from their retreat. He was now stuck in a situation of being removed from his homelands. The fortress they were meant to be reinforcing was taken, and the Balchoff are beginning to cross over the river they've just driven the Gondorians across, preparing to attack Cirion. Things could not look worse. And then they got worse. The men of Gondor, now driven to the western side of the river, closer to the Misty Mountains, suddenly are assailed by a large host of orcs that have come down from the Misty Mountains. It seems the men of the east had somehow enlisted the aid of or drawn the attention of these orcs, hoping to set up an ambush to remove the steward of Gondor.
I do like how there's just a bunch of orcs just sitting around in a bunch of little places.
They're fucking ready, man.
They're just fucking ready anytime.
This all but drove Cirion onto the banks of the Anduin itself. He's now backed up against a river, being assailed by two different foes from either side in a desperate shield wall. And then Earl has come.
That was terrible.
I don't know, man. Neither of you made fucking noise. I was just doing horns.
I went, whoa.
That makes no noise. This is an audio medium. We need to be making noises.
Yeah. Woohoo. Earl arrives at the field of Celebrant on the morning of the April 15th. So just to put that in perspective, they left on April 6th. They arrived on April 15th. 500 miles. They traveled basically 50 miles a day on horseback.
But
that
to be
is
fair,
fucking insane.
Not quite on the third day. It was a bit late. You know, look to the east on the third day.
Horse mile per hour. Horse of average speed can go 30, but that's not including supplies, loading, the kids, everyone.
Often those like crazy things where you see a horse goes like really far. Usually they're switching horses.
Yep.
So they'll run the horse out for like a whole day.
Horse mile per hour, long distance. I'm sure will change the answer. Okay, gallop. Yeah, galloping 20 to 30, but on terms of like normal walking.
I mean, it's impressive. Yep. I as someone who knows very little about horses, it sounds impressive.
They ride a very long way in a very short time.
A trot's 10 miles per hour. A gallop is 30. Like going 50 miles an hour is rapid. No, not hour. Our day. Yeah,
it's pretty nuts.
I can do it. It's okay.
Earl and his riders, coming out of seemingly nowhere, attack the orc army from the rear, slaying many of them and scattering the rest back towards the mountains. The two armies of Gondor and the Aetheod, then unified, turn their attention on the Balchoff, and the combined forces drive them back across the river that they'd been hoping to use against the Gondorians, and this cut them off from their own retreat to the east, and this meant that the allied force could catch them, kill or capture them, and put an end to this incursion. Cirion and Earl greeted each other after the battle, Cirion well understanding the debt that he owed Earl. So he saw a chance, an opportunity. That brings us to...
For sex.
I knew you were going to say that. And then they kissed.
Yeah!
Yeah. This brings us to the oath of Cirion and Earl.
That's the real reason men to go to war, so they can kiss other men with no women around.
Cirion took Earl the Young, Lord of the Aetheod, to a hallowed site called Amon Anwar, somewhere that Isildur had been many thousands of years ago. And that is the site that Isildur buried his father, Elendil, High King of Arnor and Gondor.
Damn.
On this site in the mountains, they swear an oath, giving the region of Kalandaron, the place that the Easterlings had tried to take off of Gondor, over to the Aetheod, and promising an eternal friendship between the two kingdoms. Cirion called upon Eru Ilúvatar himself to witness this oath, an act that amazed witnesses, as usually only the kings of Gondor had that right. Whether or not the god actually listened, who knows? But it's the spectacle.
This is the steward. This is the steward
This
doing
is
this.
the steward that says it, and
So he's a little above his grade, but it's okay, you know.
But it's a monumental moment, and it is said that no greater oath had been said by men since Elendil swore his oath of allegiance to Gil-galad at the beginning of the Last Alliance.
Damn.
With this, the Aetheod brought the rest of their people down, the children and few soldiers they left back home, brought them all down from the frigid and overcrowded north.
I was going to say, that's a long way to bring everyone.
Yep.
Hey,
bring the rest of them
man,
down.
thank you for helping out a war. Your reward is having to pack up all your people, move like 500 miles south, and take this land that was going to get taken off me anyway.
Women and
I can't hold
children,
it.
women and children, we would love you to join us. Do be aware there is some sort of evil thing in the mountains. Probably steer clear.
Also, you're like, hey, could you move all your people down? And what you're going to act as a buffer between the evil people and Gondor. So that's what you're going to do.
Just go wide around Lorien, babes. You'll be fine.
Don't worry about it. Just stick as close to Lorien as you can. This weird white thing came out and protected us, so just keep near
It'll
that.
probably work for you guys. I don't know. We haven't figured it out yet.
But in honor of their young king, the Aetheod renamed themselves at this point to the Eorlingers, otherwise known as the Followers of Earl. But in the Sindarin, this translates to the Rohirrim, or the Horse Lords.
The Horse Lords!
Their country became known as Rohan, or the Riddermark. And that brings us to the founding of Rohan, the lovely horse-loving nation, the true horse nation of Lord of the Rings, the focus of the Two Towers, and very key players in the movies. And of course, the key thing for this episode, and when it should hopefully be coming out, tomorrow or today, the movie Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim is coming out, guys. Woohoo!
They made another one?
Is that the event we just talked about, or is that another war?
That is another one. I didn't want to do... There's no way of me doing an episode on the movie's events without just spoiling the movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
So while I'll do something about it later after the movie's been out for a bit, I figured that this was the nicest way to talk about Rohan.
Did the good guys win?
Right now or in the movie?
At the movie. In the
I don't know.
War of the Rohirrim. Did the
He
Rohirrim
hasn't
win?
seen it yet. He hasn't seen it yet, guy.
You'll have to see.
He hasn't seen it yet.
I don't want to watch it. I just want to know. I just want to see the memes.
You fucking need to watch one of these fucking movies, guy.
Well, War of the Rohirrim is animated in like an anime style, guys. You might
Okay, never mind. That's cool. I'll watch that.
So the final thing that I'll throw in here, a couple little random thingamajigs.
Nuggets.
Little nuggets. At the end of the Third Age, dawn of the Fourth Age, when Aragorn ascends to the King of Gondor, end of the movies, you'll all know that scene very well, I'm sure. Him and the then King of Rohan, Éomer, renew this oath and restate the friendship between these two realms, and the alliance between them becomes stronger yet.
And they kiss.
Nope, Éomer marries a daughter of someone in Gondor. But don't worry about it.
And then another big civil war breaks out for the purity of blood.
No, Rohan don't care. They're fine. And then another fun little nugget. The reason that we know that Fram's treasure hoard he took from the dragon didn't get taken back by the dwarves is because in the time of the movies, there is this very special little silver war horn that the hobbit Merry is given by one of the Rohirrim, Éowyn, and that horn is something that Fram took from the dragon's hoard. So,
Damn.
yep, they brought all that treasure down south of them, and the dwarves just never saw it again, I guess.
And they just gave it away to a random hobbit that came by.
Yep. And I
This
also,
thing has been their family.
He was
This has been their
bestie.
family
He
for,
was
like,
he was goated, all right? He was a pretty cool
was
guy.
This has been their family for like 800 years?
He was a pretty cool guy.
He's a pretty cool hobbit. Yeah, that's
he's
true.
a pretty cool hobbit. I love it. I also would love just to have like Gimli being like a seething little dwarf in the corner. But anyway.
There's a few different people who are seething at different gifts from what I'm aware of. Isn't there also something about the hairs where someone goes nuts about that?
Yep.
Gimli loves the hairs. Gimli loves.
Oh, he loves them like they're his own children, but there's something wrong with that. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it in a meme.
Yep. That's a whole separate thing. I won't start that rant.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So that was very interesting, Jude.
God damn.
We have all the backstory. You now are. You should have introduced it as we're all prepared. We're all ready to watch the movie.
Oh, that is the ep intro. I took
That's amazing. Right.
Oh my god, you waited till now for the spoiler for the topic of the episode? I just thought I was listening to Lord of the Rings history. It was interesting, don't get me wrong.
I do have one question, though.
Uh-huh.
And this might be spoilers, so you tell me if it is. But where was Gondor when the Westfold fell?
Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell?
Yes.
That's a great question. Basically, Gondor, at the point of the Westfold being burnt by Saruman, was under siege from Mordor in Ithilien and Carandros, where the garrisons were being slaughtered, massacred, and overwhelmed. The armies of Gondor's south were being tied up by the Corsairs and the approaching Haradrim. And meanwhile, the Easterlings of the east were coming in through the northeast, through the Emyn Muil, I believe, and attacking Gondor's north. So basically, Gondor was under siege and losing thousands of men a day.
I don't want to hear excuses.
It does. I'll be honest. It does sound like a lot of excuses. That is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you're fucking right. Where was Gondor? Where was Gondor?
Fucking Gondor, man. Gondor has no king. Gondor needs a king.
Gondor might need a king. Gondor debatably needs a king.
But yeah, that's the founding of Rohan, boys.
That's the men. That's the age of the men.
Yes, we'll do another episode to round out our little segment on the realms of men, but it's not so much going to be a lore episode as much as it's going to be another entry into the arena. But we'll get to that next time.
Indeed.
It's time to put all these men in a little.
Put these men in the box.
Let them get at it. Yeah.
Were you about to say put these men in my box, guy?
Yeah. Sometimes you get a course correct, and sometimes it's a little too late. You already gave the game away. I already opened my box a little too far. You saw inside.
I saw your box. I saw everything.
I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited for that. Well, thank you, Jude. This was a great episode, and I'm very thankful for this episode. You know what else I'm thankful for? I'm thankful for our Patrons. At Living by Law, every one of our law keepers get extra content.
At Living by the Law Co. All of our loyal
get extra content and an extra special thanks from us. And I'd like to thank all our law keepers, including our prestige law keepers. 1 second, I'm waiting for the website to load.
My God, man, there will be one of these days you'll have it up before the recording.
No, there won't. Our prestige law keepers, Bong the Bard, Josh from Maine, and Shadow. Thank you so much. You keep the lights on. Thank you so much to our novice law keepers, Blitz Bandit, Dan Dubs, Jacob from Norway, Josh Cows, Loading Name, Luke Newcomb, Mike Grain, Tiani Wilson, and Uranian Games.
Yo, let's go.
Thank you so much to all of you. You are lovely. And you can become a patron today at Limbo Law to get some mini-sodes, extra content, and other stuff.
But if you don't have the money for that, at the very least, give us a little follow if you got this far. And if you'd like, you can give us 5 stars preferably, but the number of stars you believe you give us. But the number of stars you give us is the number of oaths sworn in your name.
It's good.
That's not bad. You want me to go?
Yeah,
You
go. Yeah,
He's got something lined up.
The number of stars you give us is the number of horses you get, man. Yeah, or the number of men man's bane gets to slaughter.
The number of men your horse has slain.
Yeah.
I genuinely
love
thought you were going to
horsemen.
say the number of stars is the number of men you get.
Yeah.
It's not many, but 5 men's the start of an army.
Hey, I also like how these bear men were just sitting around doing nothing.
Bear men didn't get mentioned.
Poor bear men.
Did bear men get plagued? Did they just die?
They kind of get hunted by orcs. It's pretty brutal. Yeah.
If the normal men can kill a dragon and all the other orcs, and the fucking bear men get killed by them, I'm sorry, you fucking not very good bears.
The number
Get
of
better.
stars, the number of stars you give us, is the number of times you can defeat the Wayne Riders.
These motherfuckers keep coming back.
They just keep coming
At that point, you need to finish. Do some more work to defend yourself. You're getting attacked again and again and again.
Honestly.
They're fast, man. What the fuck are you going to do about it?
They do. That's why they got the horses, because they wanted to chase the Wayne Riders. They're like, fuck, that's a good idea.
As you ride at the mind-boggling pace of 50 miles a day along riverbanks, and as the white mists of an elven lady cover you and you fall asleep in the saddle, say goodnight.
And as you awaken to find a dragon having decided it quite likes the look of your hood, get your boys and say good morning.
And as the horse slaughters your father, you lay him down to rest.
No!
Say goodbye.
My poor dad got killed by a horse.
Guys, it's been 2 episodes and we already forget. It's sayonara, father.
Sayonara, Sonic.
Sayonara, Sonic the Hedgehog, and good night. Oh my god, we need to get back into doing.
We should change every time. It's Sayonara, the Men of Rohan.
Sayonara, the Men of Rohan.
That's what I did last episode as well. I said sayonara, Ayana.
We need to get back into making
Sonic.
pledges. I think that's a real thing.
Pledges,
oaths. I need to swear my allegiance to more people.
Yeah, it's called a
I don't want to
legally
write
binding contract.
Fuck, you're right.
I think instead of legally binding contracts, we should start making blood oaths.
Since I handed in my resignation today, does that mean I broke my oath?
Yes.
makes you an oathbreaker.
Damn it. Oh, yay, actually. They're goated.
Thank you for listening to Living by the Law. If you enjoyed our podcast, please leave a review, tell your friends, and if you're feeling extra generous, become an official lawkeeper by joining our Patreon today. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Living by the Law. All links are in the description, and thank you in advance. We have been, and always will be, Living by the Law. Thank you for your company, and good night.